was just actually a brutal game last night for Monday Night Football, for everybody involved, for us watching it. I mean, it was just brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, and the Texans catch the Cowboys at the right time. Anybody playing the Cowboys in the future here now are catching them at the right time.
And the Giants are.
Yes, they are. So, and Tommy DeVito will be leading them on Thanksgiving Day against the Giants, assuming that he plays well and they he plays well and stays healthy against the Bucs this weekend. But a lot of things happened yesterday. I read an article on ESPN, and I forgot which guy wrote it. I got to look back at it, but I will give him credit for it because he did an in-depth article on Aaron Rodgers and his effect on the Jets. And two things came out of this article.
It wasn't Rich Cimini?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
And it was, it was a long-form article, so I kind of like those. And he goes into a lot of little things. And I remember we spoke about this, and this was after he basically went on this little tirade about Mike Williams, and I think it was after the London game, and how Mike made a mistake, and remember Aaron outed Mike Williams, and we all were shocked at that.
Yeah.
Well, this writer interviewed Mike Williams, and Mike Williams basically said that everybody sent me the video via text of that particular interview after the post-game interview. And this is what I was telling you. This is the story behind the story, that locker rooms are very fragile places, and it's one thing to really have a respect for a player, and I think everybody, for the most part, does, I would think. But then there's the kind of manipulation around the locker room and how you deal with people and how people deal with the outside world, because that's something that Aaron can't control. He can control what goes on the practice field, maybe what's going on in the meeting rooms, but he can't control the outside world when it comes to the way his teammates are going to react to something he may have said. And there is a real eye-opening discussion in there with Mike Williams about how, I mean, the video was sent to me by so many people in my life. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing. And what am I supposed to do about it? It is what it is. But again, this is it chips away at what you're trying to build as a team. And then later on in the article, they talked to Braylon Allen, their running back, the young running back.
Sure.
And he goes, I just don't want to disappoint Aaron. I just don't want to disappoint him. And this is a kid that grew up in Wisconsin that watched Aaron Rodgers have all the success with the Packers. And
he's half his age.
Right, he's half his age. Well, they always say that when they're playing, too. 40 heading to 20, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So you see this and you say to yourself, there's no shock why this isn't working. And I've said it earlier about taking the air out of the locker room, that kind of stuff. And stuff like this happens. Everybody's deferring to him. His comments are upsetting players, upsetting people in their public or their private life who are now questioning whether or not Aaron Rodgers is what he's supposed to be when he got here and how he's leading the team. And I just thought that article was really well written, and I thought that it really gave you a perspective of how the Jet locker room kind of steps aside for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I think I found it from Tim Keown, and it says inside Aaron Rodgers' complicated relationship with the Jets. And this actually
shouldn't be that complicated.
No, it really should not. But then again, the Packers warned us. What was it, Mark Murphy or Ted Thompson before he passed about he's a complicated fella that they said about him. So maybe it's complicated wherever he goes. But this was actually written before the game and the loss on Sunday. So it's got even more complicated and weird. And you can get away with some of the things that Aaron Rodgers has done and, calling out his teammates and some of the weirdness when you're winning MVPs. But when you can't move, you look washed up, and your offense, for the most part, has been a joke this season, those things now don't sit well.
Yeah, I mean, and unfortunately for Aaron, I mean, he is coming off a serious injury, and there have been reports that there may be ankle and knee injuries that go along with trying to come back from an Achilles injury at the age of 41. But I just, my thing is I keep on saying that locker rooms are very fragile places, and it's not so much usually what happens in the locker room when you're with each other and you're practicing, you're in the meeting rooms, you're in the training room, you're in the weight room. A lot of that stuff is a lot of fun. It's great to be around. But when you're losing and nowadays with social media, it's piled on. People just keep piling on. And it's easy for people to send guys like Mike Williams the video of the interview.
Yeah.
And so I know how it affects him personally as a player. Now, how it works with the other players who see this, you never know how they're going to react to it. You know what I mean?
Yes, of course, especially if he's never played with them before. He wasn't handpicked by Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Mike Williams was a guy that Joe Douglas brought in. Yes, I mean, those relationships are tough. And I also think, I mean, it's clear Aaron Rodgers is not Tom Brady or Peyton Manning when it comes to the leader of men coming in, commanding respect, and also getting whatever you need out of the team. And Peyton Manning did it after a massive neck injury. So I don't want to hear the excuse about, well, Aaron Rodgers got hurt. Well, Peyton Manning, there was a chance his career was over. And then he had the neck injury. They started working down with David Cutcliffe at Duke, and he came back, and all the teams saw him to see if he could throw, and he went up to Denver, and he ended up having the success. And Aaron Rodgers just isn't that guy. He's one of the most talented quarterbacks you've ever seen. He's a first-ballot Hall of Famer, MVPs, everything else. But when it comes to having everybody look to you and then delivering, Aaron Rodgers doesn't have that same leadership quality that those other two guys have. It's just it's more about him. I mean,
you have documentaries.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the star of Hard Knocks, the in-season or the preseason Hard Knocks. I mean, it's just there's a lot. It's a delicate balance. It really is, and everybody knows who he is. Everybody knows he took less money to come here. Everybody knows he, unfortunately gets injured, tries to come back after being injured, and tries being the same player, and it's not working. And it's unfortunate because if they were winning, everybody would be happy. But when you're losing, then all of a sudden, that's when things start fraying around the edges. That's when players start, looking around going, he ain't as good as we thought he was, or he just doesn't have what he used to have. And with all this other stuff going on and his comments about our teammates, it just basically fractures the entire locker room. That's what I took away from that article.
Yeah.
That locker room is completely fractured, and now it makes me think that I don't know how the Jets can come back with him next year. I really don't. I mean, I just don't see it as great as he was in Green Bay, and he will be a first ballot Hall of Famer. There's no question about it. And I always feel like we have to say that because we want to show some deference and respect to what he has accomplished in this league and the amount of years that he has played, the amount of success that he's had. But it is evident to me now that after reading this article that it's just too much. I mean, it's just he's too big, if that's even imaginable.
Yeah, I mean, he's too big for what this circumstance was, and he's not good enough coming off the injury, not a real leader that was in there as a head coach. I mean, it's just that was a big part of it as well. I mean, and I remember, I think it was the Patriot loss, but I'm trying to look for it now. But there was a defensive lineman who came out after that game, and I initially thought he was trolling more than anything. Where he was like, it's just sad to see a guy's career end like this. I mean, he's just not the player he used to be.
For the Patriots?
Yeah, was saying that about Aaron Rodgers. I'm trying to find out who that guy was, and I honestly thought he was trolling a little bit. But I don't think he was. I think that guy now, after watching more games after that, I think that's what he saw, and he was honest about it. Like, this guy's cooked. This is not the same guy. He also sees all sorts of young quarterbacks doing all crazy things and making throws in the league. He's playing against the best players, and he just honestly, that was his honest assessment of what he saw what Aaron Rodgers is in 2024.
It's a really delicate thing for teams, and the only way that you get through that is if you win. And and the opposite of that, unfortunately, is what's gone on over at the Giants.
Yeah.
It's the opposite. The guy's not big enough. The guy doesn't have enough energy. The guy doesn't, isn't nearly as good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Devon
Godchaux.
Godchaux, is that how you say that?
Yes.
Yeah, I want to get that exact quote.
Devon Godchaux was the defensive lineman for the Patriots that said what he said about Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
And, you never know how these things are going to go, but that article I thought was well written. I thought, he went to the right people. He asked the right questions. He got the right responses. And it just made me think that, that locker room is fractured. You could say whatever you want. And the only way that locker room would ever not be fractured or would come together is if they were winning, because winning is easy. Winning, when you're winning, when you're like, the Patriots, when they were in their heyday with Bill Belichick, everybody loves to go up and go to work and be there because the next week you got a chance to win. Like, there's a belief that you're going to win. I mean, it's in every sport. I mean, you try to build that culture within the team, and it's hard to do when you're bringing in outside mercenaries.
So this was the full quote there by Devon Godchow. He goes, Hall of Fame quarterback. Hate to see him go out that way. He definitely don't look the same. He kept moving back there. I could run him down and catch him. He didn't look mobile at all, and he's a huge guy. Gotcha. I was saying I could run him down and catch him.
But it's obvious that he can't. I mean, we know that. I mean, it's
but this is we know that now.
Yes.
But the point
but
is,
this was after the injury.
I mean,
though.
this is but this is something that should have been talked about more. With starting this season, and everybody just thought he was going to come back and be great.
So
I mean, he's a 41 or 40-year-old quarterback coming off a massive injury. I hadn't played in a year. He wasn't even that great the year before. They had missed the playoffs. I mean, we're all assumed he was going to come in here with a cape on and take the Jets to the playoffs. It was just I don't know how we didn't see it coming more.
Well, I mean,
it ain't easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, if he didn't get hurt in game one, maybe he would have taken that team to the playoffs. I don't know. But coming back and doing all the extra stuff, they were running extra practices at the end of that year for him because he wanted to prove that he was going to be able to come back from this surgery because he did that special surgery, and that was a big part of everything. And, so there's a lot of stuff that went on that I think I'm sure a lot of players really were disappointed, and certainly the losing kills you, and then you get a coach fired, and you got to most likely get a GM fired, and everybody's going to end up cleaning house over there. And it's just, it didn't work. It just didn't work. And it's really unfortunate that it didn't. I mean, this article is really, it's eye-opening, but it really tells me everything I thought was going on. And it's going on. And then Mike Williams and his reaction to Russell Wilson when he gets to Pittsburgh was epic, according to Russell, and how happy Mike was to be out of here and be there and thrust into the middle of a playoff run. Now, Mike just wants to be a part of a team. He just wants to be able to be a part of winning and make a few plays here or there as opposed to dealing with this stuff over here.
I also think when it's the Jets and you're coming to save a franchise or, change the narrative, all these things we talk about with the Jets, the pressure, it mounts. It's talked about more. Yes, this city, that we've got more noise around us than a lot of others. I mean, when you go to Denver, if you're Peyton Manning, they had John Elway there. They had won a couple of Super Bowls in not too distant memory. Like the games were actually broadcast in color when they were winning Super Bowls. And you go to Tampa Bay, it's like, okay, it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They had won with Gruden back in 2002. The fan base is great, but it's the Buccaneers, for crying out loud. They shoot cannons. They got a ship in there. You come to the Jets and you're supposed to be Joe Namath again. You're supposed to make this franchise happy in your opening press conference. You're saying, well, Lombardi looks a little lonely over there. You got Joe Benigos all over the place saying that it's never going to happen. I mean, it's a different thing. You come in here and that stuff swallows you up. And this is what I mean about going forward with this franchise is it's going to take – it didn't work with the old superstar player, but it could work with the older former superstar coach coming back. But it takes a lot, man. It's going to take somebody even more special than washed up Aaron Rodgers to turn this thing around with the Jets. It's just a different franchise, man.
Do you remember obviously I'm sure you do, the Patriot-Rams Super Bowl in Atlanta? We had a great time down there.
Yeah.
And on the NFL Today set, Von Miller was a guest host with us.
Yeah.
And I had a long time to spend with Von Miller because it was pretty much the entire day. And he and I were just talking about quarterbacks, and obviously we got into the whole Tom Brady thing. And, they didn't score a lot of points that game, and neither did the Rams and Jared Goff.
13-3, right?
Yeah, it was not a great game. It was a Gronkowski one catch that actually won the game for the Patriots. But it was a defensive battle, so if you like defense, it's great. There you go. You have a defensive battle in the Super Bowl. But Von Miller was talking about Super Bowl 50. That was the one out in Santa Clara, and that was the one that, they beat the Carolina Panthers. And we did that game for CBS as well. And, Von was telling me, he goes, because they had Brock Osweiler was the backup, and that year was the year that Peyton really hurt his neck. And he missed a bunch of games, but somehow Denver still won. But Von said, man, we just needed Peyton on the field. We needed to have Peyton in uniform. I couldn't, it didn't matter if he could throw the ball 2 yards or 20. It didn't matter. I just needed him out there. And then as long as we had him out there, we believed that if we did our job, that somewhere along the line during the game, he would do his job, and he would raise the level of everybody's play. And, and I remember that Super Bowl because Peyton he could barely move.
No, I mean, he was throwing ducks all over the place. He couldn't throw the ball down the field, but he gritted it out like you wouldn't believe. Yes. And he did everything you needed to do from an intangible standpoint.
Right. His team believed in him. His team, and by the way, he had successful years because he actually took him to the Super Bowl here in New York against Seattle, and it didn't start out well as the ball gets snapped past him on the first play. But it was just it's just a different belief in the player, and the way that Von was talking glowingly about Peyton, tells me everything I need to know about what's going on with the Jets. And it's really unfortunate that a guy later on in his career who, by all accounts, seems to be the smartest guy in the room and knows exactly what's going on, because when you read in that article, you'll hear about how particular he is about certain things on the field, and that's a great thing. He wants to be able to make sure guys know exactly what he's expecting. But then you see yesterday, his completion chart comes out.
Yeah, nothing down the field.
Nothing. There is nothing down the field, which really makes me wonder about the issues that he had with Mike McCarthy, the issues that he had with Matt LaFleur, and now the issues that he's had here, both with Nathaniel Hackett, Todd Downing, and I'm sure Rob Saleh. Can we throw the ball down the field some? And I know it's bump and run. He loves to do that. But there is a scheme that you're running. There's a concept that you're running. And those concepts include deep ins, deep outs, all sorts of throws. But for some reason, he did not want to throw any of those against the Colts. I'm not sure why. You never know why. You never know what he sees or how. Maybe the Colts were blitzing a little bit more than he thought or they thought, and he decided to get rid of the ball quickly. And now Kwity Paye was in the backfield, seemed like all day long. So a lot of times you don't have a lot of time to wait and throw it down the field. But my God, their offense now all of a sudden is basically stalled.
Yeah, and I don't imagine it's going to get much better.
And this is a game in which they scored, 27 points or whatever.
Right, and most of it happened in the second half, which they were having more issues with. I mean, they were never really good in the second halves of these games, and they were in this one offensively. But now it's like, is this guy really going to want to come back and play next year? That's the biggest question surrounding this organization.
And if he does he play for the Jets? That's right. Really, do the Jets just take it on the chin and just move forward?
Yeah, which I think that they should. I just don't know. I mean, they've catered to him and genuflected to him since the second that he said he wanted to be here. And I can't imagine if Aaron Rodgers says, I want to come back and I want to come back in this uniform, that Woody Johnson is going to say, no, I don't think so, Aaron. Go somewhere else.
I don't know if he'll say that or not, because I don't know what Woody and Christopher told him when they all flew out to go see him in California. I don't know what that sit down was like.
A lot has changed from then, though.
Well, but I know that. But also he took less money to come here. And that is something to be, appreciated and lauded by the owners of the team. They tried, and I'm sure the first year when the trade went down, I'm sure sponsorships went through the roof. I'm sure tickets went through the roof. I'm sure everybody was excited. So he probably paid for himself, in the day that he was traded.
Yeah.
I just, what's going on now, the question is what does the future of the franchise look like, and can he be the one leading it out of this abyss starting next year? That is a question that, at the moment, they have to answer over there. I can't answer for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, and it's easy to deal with a rebuild when you go all in and it works. And you say, okay, next few years are going to be tough, but man, we got that championship.
But they've tried rebuilds. They've tried rebuilds here.
No. What I'm saying is that when you go, but they never really went all in like this. My point is that you go all in. This was an all-in year, and you failed on a massive scale, and now you're going to have to rebuild after that.
I kind of feel like they've tried to go all in a number of times. Whether it be with Sanchez, whether it be with Darnold, whether it be with Zach Wilson. I mean, they've tried. They just haven't really hit on that guy that makes the big difference. Quality players, quality human beings, yes. Difference makers, no. Yeah. Not especially when they drafted them. They just were not able to really take it to another level, which is what you're looking at and what you're hoping for when you draft a Josh Allen, a Patrick Mahomes, a Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, a C.J. Stroud last night. You're looking for that player, and unfortunately the Jets have whiffed on 3 of those players with those high draft picks.